Coucou, aujourd'hui, nous regarderons le subjonctif. So often we get asked, what is the subjunctive? So it's a way of framing a sentence in terms of somebody else's emotions, doubts, somebody else's thoughts and opinions on what is happening. So instead of just stating a fact, we are now inserting a subjective condition. And so it's no longer a fact. We're talking about things that may or may not happen. We may be talking about people's reactions to certain possibilities. In English, it's very rare to use a subjunctive. One example is, I wish she were a princess, as opposed to saying she is a princess. So in the subjunctive English example, we know that she is not actually a princess. It's contrary to the fact. In French, we're going to use subjunctive after expressions of emotion and desire. So in this example, il veut qu'elle choisisse un mari. The verb vouloir is conjugated in the regular present tense. Then we have que. Then we have a new subject. We started with il plural. Now we have elle, so she singular. And that verb choisir is the verb that's in the subjunctive. So we have what we're going to refer to as trigger phrases that then require the subjunctive to follow. And this example shows that she does not have a husband yet, but people are imposing their emotions about her choice to find a husband onto her. So here are some expressions of want, desire, and emotion. I give you the infinitive forms. You would conjugate these in the regular present tense. And then you would have que. Then after that, you would have the subjunctive. Here are some expressions. Now, it's not important to necessarily memorize all of these, but if you see or recognize a verb that means something along the lines of wanting or desiring, you'll know that subjunctive will follow it as long as there's que in the sentence. The exception is the verb espérer, which is to hope. It's actually followed by the future tense and not the subjunctive. We're also going to use the subjunctive after expressions of doubt. We use the subjunctive because we're uncertain, it's unclear, we don't know whether it's possible, we don't know if the speaker recognizes that this could be a fact or not. Here are some expressions of doubt or possibility. And remember, these are not in the subjunctive themselves, right? We have ela, which is the present tense. Dute, you would conjugate in the regular present indicative. But after the que is where we will see the subjunctive. One exception is the expression il est probable que, because to the French, if something is probable, it is likely enough, it is certain enough, and therefore we don't use the subjunctive. So here's what you need to form the subjunctive. First, we start with an expression of desire, emotion, or doubt. We need to have that word que, and we need to have two different subjects. So this example, Mademoiselle Heller désire que vous compreniez le subjonctif. We have the subject, Mademoiselle Heller, and the subject, vous. If Mademoiselle Heller was talking about herself, we wouldn't use the subjunctive. So we have all the required elements, the expression, the que, and two different subjects. We're going to see some examples of usages of the subjunctive. Every subjunctive sentence will have que, but not every sentence with que uses the subjunctive. It's possible to use que in other ways that doesn't make a subjunctive sentence. So this is an example showing relative pronouns, which we've seen before. Again, here are some sentences that show want, emotion, desire, and personal expressions. We do not use the subjunctive when we are certain that something is happening. So these expressions, even though they look like impersonal expressions, or they look like they might be want or desire, we won't use the subjunctive. You can see that in all of these examples, there is no subjunctive. However, with the words and phrases that I just mentioned, if we put them in the negative or interrogative, meaning a question form, we do need the subjunctive. So this can be tricky because these change. We see now that there are verbs in the subjunctive after the word que, because suddenly now these are suggesting doubt and uncertainty. So, as a review, please do not use the subjunctive after expressions such as these if they are positive. Again, do not use the subjunctive here. But please do use the subjunctive. In fact, it's required when we have expressions that express command, doubt, emotion, fear, possibility, and will. And so again, these examples on the right, these verbs have been conjugated in the regular present tense, indicative, and after the que is where I would ask you to put the verb in the subjunctive. Now, we have to remember that the que is the important part. So if there's two verbs in the sentence, or if someone's talking still about themselves and we haven't changed the subject, then we just use the infinitive. So il faut trouver, right? There's no subjunctive because there's no que. Same thing if we're using an expression such as être and then an adjective. So if we're saying she is content that you do something, we need the subjunctive. If we just say she is content because of something happening to her, we use de and the infinitive. And so on this final slide, we can see side-by-side examples of the subject and the verb plus the infinitive. There's only one subject in this sentence. There's no que, so there's no subjunctive. And then on the other side, we see how by adding que and a new subject, we get the subjunctive. Et voila, an explanation of when to use the subjunctive following expressions of emotion, doubt, uncertainty, want, and desire. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask in class. À demain!